All right, folks, hello and welcome back to Online English Class. Hope you guys are doing well today. Today we are going to begin our final OTN for the novel 1984. So we'll be finishing OTN 9 today and tomorrow. All right, but before we do that, let's go ahead and remind ourselves of our basic tasks for this week, okay? So first of all, foremost, you need to make sure that you are continuing your work on your discussion grade procedure on a daily basis. All right, so leave a meaningful comment. You also need to send email confirmation of your completions of OTN 6 through 8 by Wednesday at 3 p.m. Okay, so 6, 7, and 8 by Wednesday at 3 p.m. And then finally, you need to continue completing your OTNs as we complete them in class. All right, so we're going to be completing OTN 9 both today and tomorrow. Then we're going to be taking your Unit 6 test on Thursday and Friday. Okay, so you need to begin preparing for that Unit 6 test as early as today. Okay, so you should use the study guide, the Unit 6 review guide, which is available on RenWeb. All right, so you can get on RenWeb and you can download it. The test is going to be an open-ended analysis essay, which means that you can answer the prompt in a variety of different ways with a variety of different evidences and key pieces of text. But you all need to answer one central question, and that is using an analysis of Winston's character development, so how his character develops through the course of the novel. You need to write an essay that explains what Winston discovers about the nature of the human spirit. What does he mean? What does he discover about what it means to be a person, what it means to be human during his rebellion, and how is that spirit recreated by the party in Part 3? Okay, so that's going to require you to analyze important portions of Part 1, 2, and 3, all right, testing and evaluating your knowledge of the novel as a whole. Okay, so we'll be talking more about this review guide at the end of tomorrow's class and also on Thursday as you are taking the test and preparing for that test. It needs to be submitted to me, the test, by Friday at 3 p.m., okay? So finally, after we complete that test, all right, we'll be done with new content for the year, and the only thing that we'll have left is to complete your Quarter 4 essay, which you already should have a draft of, okay? So you should have been working on that Quarter 4 essay. You got that prompt a really long time ago, all right? So if you don't have anything for that Quarter 4 essay, then you are definitely behind, but the good news is you have until May 22nd to complete your work, all right? So today we're going to be working on our final analysis of essentially the destruction and the recreation of Winston's spirit by the party that Orwell has been illustrating throughout the course of the novel. All right, the first thing we need to do quickly is to conduct an SQ3R for this text. All right, tomorrow we're going to be analyzing this prompt in much more detail. We're going to be analyzing how Winston's characterization resolves and how Orwell's illustration of the nature of the dystopian environment concludes. All right, so we're going to be coming to some conclusions about the nature of this dystopian environment that Orwell has introduced us to through the course of this novel. Okay, so to that end, let's go ahead and pull out our notes and conduct an SQ3R. First of all, as always, we're going to take a quick account of the speaker. Who's the speaker? A third-person omniscient narrator. All right, somebody who has watched Winston throughout the course of his entire rebellion, who knows all of his internal lives, who has read his journal. In other words, it would seem that this novel is written by someone like O'Brien, all right? And the novel itself, instead of being a novel exploring and celebrating Winston's rebellion against their tyrannical authority, actually, by the end of the novel, it seems to have been written as a celebration of Winston's destruction and recreation, okay? A testimony to the party's power over humanity, all right? And so, following the sort of general premise of the party's actions, the general telos of the party's actions, it would seem that this novel is a celebration of the conquest of the human spirit, not a tragedy about its loss, okay? Hence, the seemingly positive ending of the last sentence of the novel. He loved Big Brother. It ends comically. It ends in love, okay? But that love obviously is a love that destroys Winston's soul, not redeems it, okay? So, Again, interesting thoughts about the narrative perspective that's been brewing from the very beginning. Okay, what's the genre or style of this text? Well, it's dystopian fiction, and dystopian fiction explores the nature of the worst possible world. All right, so the mere fact that we're reading dystopian fiction should have signaled from the very beginning that this wasn't going to end well. It isn't dystopia if the good guys win. Okay, that's a good world. The bad guys win. This is tragedy. This is dystopian fiction. So much so that the destruction of Winston's humanity is recreated in the narrative itself, right, by its author, whoever that might be, as an act of redemption, as a good thing that has come to pass. All right, so that's quite bad. All right. And this worst possible world destroys the essence of the human spirit, okay? So it follows that the novel is meant to explore what that essence is, hence your essay prompt, okay? What is the essence of the human spirit? What does it mean to be a person? What does it mean to be according to this novel, all right? And there are a number of different ways that you can answer that question, but it probably should center on something about the freedom of Winston's mind and heart, which he discovers in his rebellion, and that leads him to live a life that is in alignment with his own understanding of truth and love. Okay, so his own rational mind, which is able of apprehending truth and reality, and also his trans-rational heart, which is capable of establishing ultimate ends that he can live his life in light of, all right, which is the essence of human freedom, which is the essence of what a human was made to do. Okay, so from the Christian perspective, right, what is the essence, what is a human being supposed to do? Discover the truth about who they are and who God is, and then to respond to that with love. All right, to love God and celebrate the gospel that saves us from the destruction of our own spirit. Okay, the party operates in the exact opposite. Right, they allow Winston to discover the truth of the spirit. They allow Winston to discover love and his own trans-rational freedom. But then they conquer those things. All right, and they turn Winston's most basic components against themselves, enlisting his spirit in his own oppression. All right, so in Room 101, as analyzed yesterday, the party uses Winston's love of self, okay? So remember, the most basic commandment for treating other people lovingly is love them like you love yourself, okay? So the human being is sort of, has this instinctual, basic desire in order to pursue a life that is good for themselves. God uses that. Love of self is not wicked. Worship of self, treatment of self as ultimate is wicked. That's idolatry and the root of sin. Okay? But love of self, okay, accepting the self, the person that God has made you to be, and pursuing a life that is authentically loving for yourself is also, according to God who made you, something that helps you love other people. All right, because a man who is created for relationship, created to experience fundamental levels of love and respect, cannot get that love and respect from where? Himself alone. The relational nature of the human being, all right, cries out for loving other people the way that you love yourself. Okay, accepting other people and giving grace to other people as you accept and give grace to yourself. Okay, that is the basis of God's law of love. But you see, the party takes that law of love and it warps it. All right, it uses Winston's love of self not to leave him to love Julia, as he does in parts 1 and 2, right? It is partly Winston's love of himself and desire to live a good life that leads him into loving relationship with Julia, a sort of mutually loving relationship, a mutually fulfilling relationship. But they illustrate their power over that love by engaging with Winston's innermost fears. Okay, and also his most basic love, his love of himself. And so by the end of the scene, Winston's most basic love of self is equivalent. Winston's love is hatred of Julia. And the only entity, as we talked about yesterday, powerful enough to save Winston from suffering the worst possible fate, the only entity that can stop Winston from suffering the worst thing that he can imagine is, ironically, the same entity that would give him that. It's the party, okay? And so there is only hope. There is only Savior. So if Winston is to love himself, as he must do, he must also love the party and hate everyone and everything besides them, because that's what it means to love the party. Okay, so ironically, this is another kind of inverse of God, right? When one loves God, one is also called into a loving relationship with the rest of God's world and the rest of God's creatures, even your enemies, God says, right? Even those that would seek to harm you, God says, no, the law of love means that you must also love them. Turn the other cheek, right? Forgive over and over again, as you have been forgiven over and over again. The party as this sort of antithesis of God, right? As this sort of evil, self-made God, self-fashioned God, uses Winston's love to destroy Winston's love for others. Okay, so the final portion of the novel, part 3, chapter 6, is the resolution. Okay, so this is the portion of the novel that dramatizes the results of Winston's recreation by the party. Okay, so he's no longer in the control of the ministry of love. He's been released, and it is a small portrait of what this ideal party member looks like. It is a portrait of a man who has been turned against himself, who participates in the destruction of his own spirit. All right, so what is our central question here? Well, it's the same central question we've been exploring throughout the course of our analyses, right? How does this portion of the narrative resolve the process of Winston's recreation in the image of the party and conclude the illustration of the dystopian environment in which he lives? All right, a brief recitation. What happens in chapter 6? Well, Winston is released. He is insofar, very similar to Gulliver, okay? Just like Gulliver, who is only released insofar as he embraces complete and utter slavery to the Lilliputians' moral and spiritual premises. So Winston is released only when he is completely enslaved, when he has relinquished control of both mind and heart. And then and only then is he able to walk freely. Then and only then is he able to leave the ministry of love. His brain, his mind has been made perfect, in other words. Okay? So he sits around at the Chestnut Cafe drinking Victory Gin, watching the telescreen, accepting everything that the party says and does. Winston even writes 2 + 2 = 5 on the dust of the table that he's sitting at, and he remembers an encounter that he was allowed to have with Julia, where both of them confessed to each other that they betrayed one another, and he even says that he finds her completely unattractive. Okay, despite the fact that he was very attracted to her in parts 1 and 2. This is indicative of the extent to which Winston's spirit has been completely warped by the party. Okay, all of his instinctual longings for well-ordered pleasure, for love, have been reoriented toward the party. All of his memories of love for anyone other than the party, he remembers his mother. He remembers loving relationships with people outside of the party, and he just considers them to be false memories. All right, so he is effectively double thinking at this point, at tricks of his rational mind that tempt him to illogical acts of rebellion against the party. Okay, so here, by the end of the narrative, he has completely relinquished any belief that he has a reasonable or rational mind that is capable of observing reality and remembering things correctly and building a reliable understanding of his world. And then he sits, right, the end of the novel, the resolution of the novel comes as he's sitting listening to news of Oceania's victory in wars that he knows are purposeless. He's already read Goldstein's book written by O'Brien that explained how warfare works in Oceania. He knows that there is no threat, yet he feels deeply threatened by the encroaching forces of the enemy, and he feels that if they win this, if the enemy wins the battle in Africa, that Oceania might be overrun, and the good reign of Big Brother will come to an end. But then there's this great news flash that, oh no, yay, we've won, we've pushed the forces back, it's all good. He feels safe and secure, and he looks to a picture of Big Brother, and he expresses the depth of love that he has in his heart for Big Brother. His rational mind and his transrational heart have been conquered by the party, even as he expresses love and uses reason to destroy his mind and his heart. By the end of the narrative, that is where Winston is left, conquered. Okay, we'll look at this in a little more detail, although if you've been paying close attention to the novel up to this point, the 6th chapter should make perfect sense to you. It ties everything together and ultimately illustrates the extent to which Winston has been conquered and remade. All right, so we will come back to this tomorrow, and we'll look at these pieces of text in a little more detail. All right, you need to download this review guide and make sure that you begin the process of working through your outline and that your writing is going to fulfill all of these expectations. Okay, this is our last unit test, so it needs to be your best essay you've ever written up to this point in your academic career. Okay, so following the overarching writing and editing process. Okay, that your ability to write and interpret a thesis statement that answers the prompt clearly, your ability to construct body paragraphs that include claims that are defended with evidence from the text, and commentary that analyzes how that evidence supports your larger interpretive claim. You need to show your ability to select relevant, correct, sufficient evidence from the text. All right, so show me your knowledge of this book as you take me to important places that illustrate the significant things that you are claiming in your thesis. And finally, you need to make sure, well, sorry, second to last, you need to make sure that it's organized logically and that your prose are readable and clear according to these 5 specific instructions. Okay, so make sure you're working on that diligently throughout the course of the week as we finish up our work for the year. Okay, a little bit of work left, and then an extended summer break for you guys to go and pursue other things besides reading and writing, and we will return for your junior year, and time is passing by us quickly, so make sure that you're working diligently on this, taking hold of the opportunity to expand and deepen your reading and writing skills while the opportunity is before you. Okay, have a great day.